And a little bit later, Nathaniel Hawthorne comes along. He writes some books. He writes some stories. He's pretty well known, but he's ashamed of his family. So he adds a W.
Right.
So Nathaniel Hawthorne is Hawthorne, which I'm like, that's not even a good lie.
No.
That's not even convincing. Did you eat the cookies? No. It's that kind of thing. I'm like, if you're going to lie, at least be good. Like, at least Danvers went all in on the name change, And so
you can't just add a W and call it good.
It's good. It never happened. So Danvers has disavowed any connection. The Hawthorne family looked the other way. Salem, we stopped calling ourselves Salem Town after a while because you didn't have to differentiate between town and village anymore. And at some point, we got used to being associated with the witch trials. We got tired of it. But at some point, you kind of throw up your hands and you're like, if this is what you're going to do, then we might as well make some tourism money from it. Like, the tourists are going to come anyway. And the tourists want to walk around with their witch hats anyway. And locals hate it, except that it identifies you as a tourist, so we know where the speed bumps are now. Like, we know what to aim for, because it's disrespectful. It's making a mockery and making light of the deaths of innocent men, women, and children. And that's not good. Not a fan. But at the same time, like, there is something to be said for tourism money. I personally know of, like, artisans who make Salem-related crafts. We closed down one of our streets, Essex Street. It's still cobbled. And so we closed it to street traffic for all of the weekends in October and the last week in October altogether. And it's set up like a craft fair every day during those times. And I know people who make enough money during those 4 weekends every year to live the rest of the year. So we've sort of become a little bit numb to it. We've become practical about it because New Englanders are, like, stupid practical. And we've become sort of wryly amused by it. So the high school's mascot are the witches. And it's not on Gallows Hill, actually, but nobody cares about the details of that so much. But there are streets that lead up the side of Gallows Hill and on the adjacent hill that are called, there's Proctor Street, there's a lot, Osborne Street, there's all of these names that you've heard. But we also have, like, Cauldron Street and Puritan Way, and we have one, I'm so sorry that I'm going to say this out loud, I am ashamed of us collectively, Salem. It's called Witch Way. It's a street called Witch Way.
And Laura's heart got a little lighter.
I'm glad I could help. I just, the worst.
Yeah. To let you know, normally I would keep this off screen, but your family, Laura had to bow out. She wasn't feeling well. So.
You're not feeling well. That's fair.
Yeah, so yeah, just to let you know. But that being said, see, my only other point on this I want to get out before we get out of here is this. I think in Andover, they've sort of embraced their witches sort of immediately after the fact and said, what can you do to make people forget we ever did this? Because if you look at Andover, they were worse. Like, they went through this a similar thing, and they killed more people, and yet nobody knows. And I wouldn't know unless you told me. And then I went and looked and went, holy God, she's right. So the only way I can explain it is either A, Salem took all the good headlines, or B, somehow they got the witches to, like, do a spell to where, like, everybody forgot them. Like, we didn't do this. Cast a spell. Cast a spell.
I mean, that's the thing, though, is, seriousness, like, the question that we ask is how many witches were hanged in Salem? And the answer is none. The witchcraft, Wicca, pagan religions, earth-based religions don't believe in violence. We don't believe in harming others. I say we, I don't ascribe deeply myself, but I've studied it because a lot of my neighbors, a lot of my friends do practice, and I don't want to be a jerk. And I don't want to say that, the wrong thing when I'm hanging out with my friends. And so I've looked into it. And if I was forced to ascribe to a religion, it would be one of the more earth-based religions, Wicca, pagan. Honestly, Satanism, which people get all upset about, but Satanism is just it's not violent. There's no sacrifices. There's no black cats or whatever. It's just, this is they're very much into consent and bodily agency and don't be a jerk. Like, that's sort of the bottom line there is tread softly upon the earth and
right.
And be gentle with the people around you. And
right. The violent stuff seems to come from some of the rather more confused followers of Anton Szandor LaVey, yeah. Well, and that's not really anything to do with that's definitely not anything to do with Salem as a place, but as a practice. I was just talking about Satanism. Yeah, no, as a practice, he was an excellent marketing guru. That's what that was.
This is mainly a joke, but I just think Hawthorne without the W is weird. Because that's what I'm used to, Hawthorne with the W.
Well, yeah.
Well, and that's, we pronounce things oddly out here. So, our relationship in New England with vowels and the letter R is a little sketchy, and Harvard Yard and all that. Like, it's a wicked pisser. Like, that's how people talk, and they don't even notice it now. It's cute. It's just getting people to say their names. It's like, okay, could you spell that? Just spell that. Because, like, our last name ends in an A, and having to explain to people, like, no, that's not spelled with an ER. It actually ends in an A. Like, that's actually what it does.
Well, it's like, I have a friend, well, I guess we haven't been friends for a while, but I grew up with him in high school, and he's Nathaniel Hawthorne's great, I think that's enough greats, grandnephew. But yeah.
I've never heard of a grandnephew. I've heard of a grandchild. I've heard of a grandmother. I've heard of a grandfather. I have never heard of a great nephew.
I mean, I'm a great niece of a what is it? Someone came over on the Mayflower, signed the Declaration of Independence. I always get it backwards. Which one was? Matthew Thornton signed the Declaration of Independence. Yes. And that was my, 10th great grandfather's brother. So, yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah. Anyway, but he spells it with a W. But his dad has records going back to when they didn't. Has family records going back to when they didn't. So, and like, they laid it out for me enough that, okay, you're related. I don't care. That's fine. Let's go play Champion. Because I was big into superhero role playing at the time. Anyway, the point is that I know him, I met him, and he was always a little odd, but he'd been to visit his family in New England, and he was one of those that first told me that Salem has weird and crazy energy. And he told me never to go there because at the time, I could really feel ghosts. Like if a place was haunted, I could feel it, and I could sort of feel how they felt. I never could do any more than that. I didn't even know how to, I wanted to shut that off at the time because it was weird to me. At 53, I certainly don't feel it as strongly as I did at 16 and 17. But I still get some of it. But again, it's never more than just this. It's sort of like knowing someone's watching you and knowing that they're sad or they're mad. Only in one instance did I encounter a spirit that was happy. Sad or mad seems to be the default. And it just, so he knew about that. He's like, you shouldn't go there because it'll mess with you because it's full of ghosts. And I'm just like, yeah, okay. All right.
I don't know that it's fully, but what I was saying before about us owning our weird is that at some point we stopped fighting it and we sort of embraced the tourism and really we reached the point of embracing the ridiculousness of it a little bit. But also, Salem is definitely a magnet for people who embrace all manner of alternative lifestyles, both in terms of religious freedom, like actual religious freedom, rather than just puritanical versions of religious freedom. And that includes the freedom not to practice, which is fine. It's good. Like, I'm a fan. We, like, one of the most sort of effective, powerful, some word along those lines, statements to the Salem is very friendly to the LGBTQIA community, and one of the churches actually has this as on the steps of the church. They have 6 closet doors that they've painted the colors of the rainbow and mounted on the church steps. And it's beautiful, and it sort of tells its whole story without needing anything more than that.
I have a friend who's gay and was a musician. He used to be a street musician, and he would travel all over the country. And he went to Salem for a while during October because he could make bank standing on the corner and just playing. But he stopped going because at some point they either made it so that you either had to register or file to get a permit to stand on the corner and play music, or they banned it altogether for a short while. But whatever the case, he couldn't go there and he would tell me he'd made thousands of dollars just playing on the corner.
Yeah, I'm sure. I believe him that Salem does have some, permits in terms of like the craft fair I was talking about. You need a license, to have your table set up there. Not a license, but like I don't know. I've had a table there one year, but I'm not the one that got it, so I don't know how my host managed that. But like you get an assigned spot. This is your space. And likewise with the music, like you can't have somebody every 5 feet playing music because then none of it is music anymore. And so we had to get more involved in that. And that's partially a money thing. It is. But I think that was more about like, we have to keep space for people to move, because this is not, when you have a town that's, like I said, 3 miles across, but really there's only like a 10 block area downtown in Pickering Wharf where the action is, where everybody wants to be. And we're not anywhere near a highway. Like it's about a 20-minute drive to the nearest highway from Salem. And so the roads are not prepared for this, and the infrastructure is not there. And that's a lot of people just walking around, and they're not paying attention, and they're walking into each other, and they're walking into the musicians, and it's not good. So I understand I sound like a mom here, kind of am, but, there has to be some oversight eventually in just keeping it fair, keeping it safe.
Right. And I'm sure that there, him being there probably kept a local musician from being there, and all things being equal, I feel like local musicians should have the first shot at the open spaces. And he was a traveling guy at the time. Now he writes songs and sells them, and he makes huge money doing that, like crazy money. I mean, like literally going from being almost homeless to owning 2 homes. So, and I don't know who he sells the songs to. I don't know what he's written. He's one of those people that I wouldn't know how to contact, but when I see him, it's like James, and he's like Dean, and we hug and we talk and catch up, but we don't feel any urge to hunt each other down. Does that make? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway, long story short, I guess I kind of envy you living there, because I love history, and not that Kansas City doesn't have history, but like trying to find haunted stuff here is difficult, and I really have to research it. And 9 out of 10 times it's so poorly documented that it's I don't know what I'm getting into. But like you go on the East Coast, like Boston, oh, you know what's haunted there. Yeah, you look up haunted this, and boom, it comes up. And Salem.